Evening, guys. How are we all?
Good, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Well, thanks very much for supporting Farm Africa. It's a charity I've been working with for many years now. I've seen firsthand their good work that they've been doing all over Africa with different sustainable farming. And I thought I'd take you before we start cooking. I would take you through a little look through what their work does, so you can see where your kind donations are going. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen here. We're all where are we? Share screen. Can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
There we go. So we're all experts at this Zoom these days. So Farm Africa, I had the opportunity to go over many years ago, probably about 8 years ago now, to look at some sustainable fish farming. And I got the opportunity to visit this lady here called Joyce and her family, where they've got plenty of water, they've got really good soil, but obviously there's no infrastructure, there's no supply. And Farm Africa came to this area, and they've set up basically a setup and design and implementation for sustainable fish farming on land, freshwater. And then they've set up supply shops that manage all the feed and all the supplies and all the tools that you need to be able to sort of learn how to farm. This particular one was farming tilapia, which is a little freshwater fish, and you buy them, they're tiny, and after 8 months, they're probably about this sort of size. You usually get about 1,000 in there at once, and from this moment, I really saw, if I'm completely honest, when I went over, I didn't really know what I was going to see. And it became quite apparent that there was this massive thirst to really understand and learn and build a business and a network of businesses, lots of different farmers all around this area, all farming fish at different times and organising the harvest so that you could get the right price for your fish by not flooding the market, so to speak, by everyone selling and harvesting at the same time. So this is how you drain the pond out, and you drag this net and all the fish back up to the top of the screen, and literally you just scoop them out, and that's it, job done. But 8 months of really, really hard work. We actually used some of these fish. You can see them on the right hand side here, and we were cooking for the local family there. It was about 15 people, and by the end of the day it was getting up to 60-70 people, because people had heard that we were doing this thing, and it all got a little bit out of control, really, to be honest, and suddenly had to start cooking different dishes. This one was like a fish stew with tomatoes and potatoes and herbs. It's not that far away from today, it's slightly different, but and then also was in the kitchen grilling tilapia over banana leaves and sort of wrapped up with some spices and stuff like that. I think Joyce was a little bit bemused as to what I was doing in her kitchen. And then a couple of years later, well, actually on that trip, we started to build another pond for the family, and I promised them that I'd come back and I would harvest the pond in 8 months' time. So I gathered a group of guys together from left to right. We've got John Freeman, who is Sat Bain's head chef up in Nottingham. Then next to him is Paul Foster, who's got his own restaurant in Stratford upon Avon, a 1-star. The middle guy is a good friend of mine who's a cameraman for lots of different TV programs, and he kind of filmed the whole sort of trip. Obviously myself and Paolo, who is a restaurateur, front of house chap from London, very good friend of mine. So I wanted to take them along to show them the great work that Farm Africa did and try and grow the support a little bit more in our industry at the same time. Now, on the first trip, we were in the van on the way back to the airport, and someone was talking about Kilimanjaro, and I sort of stupidly said, I'd like to do that one day. And they were like, oh, okay, that sounds amazing. Let's get this organised. And I'm actually really scared of heights. It is not something that I particularly enjoy. I don't even go up ladders, to be honest. Didn't really think about this until I was too far in. And we went back to climb Kilimanjaro to raise money for Farm Africa. We visited some different farming initiations, so green beans, chilies, there were tomatoes, there were mangetout, and obviously a few more fish farms. And then we set about climbing this absolute nightmare of 5 days in my head, which you can, at this point, I just climbed the, there's one part called the Barranca Wall, which is pretty steep and it's almost vertical, to be honest, and it absolutely scared the life out of me. But we did make it to the top after 5 days. We hung a chef's jacket on the top, and that was kind of it, really. We sort of came back with this really sort of rich story of seeing where great charity funds were placed to see something that evolves and carries on, rather than just giving money or aid. It actually is setting someone up so that they can sustain themselves. And you can see, well, I've seen over my 3 trips, I've seen how a family has gone from being quite up against it to being able to manage their farm, and also that proceeds, they buy other things like motorbikes that you can rent to other people that need to travel to the nearby town. So these trips are really important to get people engaged so we can raise more money back in the UK. And I guess how tonight came about is we had a big gala dinner that normally happens every year, where I had sort of 4 other top chefs involved. We had to postpone for obvious reasons, and so here we are sort of cooking a dish. And the dish that we're cooking tonight has got another great story, and it comes from off my travels to Thailand. And I spent some time in Chiang Mai. It was quite a rushed trip, but I was fortunate enough to visit this guy who was he was from the Pachakoya tribe, and they are really, really ancient, and they travelled from sort of 5 different countries over hundreds and hundreds of years. And he taught me this dish, and it had real simplicity about it. It had a brilliant technique that you're going to learn later on. It seems really simple. It seems like, well, it can't really add that much, or it can't really change things that much. But I promise you, when you do it, it's quite mind-blowing. From something so simple can have so much sort of impact, really. So this guy, the pot in front of him, he had scooped out this rice that would obviously been cooked the day before, and I kind of thought he was throwing it away. He saved that rice and then started cutting up the root vegetable. So in our recipe, we've got artichokes or mini potatoes. He then poured water in. We've got a vegetable stock or any kind of stock, a light chicken stock. And then he boiled this for a while on a fire, literally on a fire. He had no cloths, no handles, no nothing. And this pan went from the fire, off the fire, on the fire, without even a sort of a flinch in his face. And he then added this local cabbage. And then he taught me, above the fire here, you can just see it at the top of the picture, he had his garlic and he had chilies that were drying, and we made the first chili paste that's been part of their cooking culture in their tribe for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we simply took chilies, garlic and salt and put them into a pestle and mortar and crushed them down, and then stirred it in at the last minute. And then this rice appeared again, and we ate this dish with a spoon, dipping the rice in, and it was absolutely incredible. Obviously, I've got a little bit more array of ingredients for us tonight, but it's basically the same sort of principles, really. It's a stock. It's got root vegetables or potatoes. It's got some spice. We're going to make the chili paste, but we're going to add, I've got clams. You can use mussels. We're going to make a little dressing with some parsley, a little bit of coriander and some lime. And ours is just going to be a more, almost westernized, I suppose, but the principles are still the same, with this incredible chili paste that you'll get to learn. So for those that aren't on the Zoom, if they'd like to support Farm Africa, you can donate £5, £10 or £20 if you can. You just got to text cook 5 or cook 10, cook 20 to 70470. That would be amazing. And I can assure you the money really does go to an incredible cause. So let's get started. Let's try and get back onto Zoom. Okay, so I can see everyone in their kitchens ready to go. So I'm going to just talk through a little bit about this recipe. Is the beauty of it is it can be made up of anything you fancy. So if you haven't got something, it doesn't really matter. It turns out I couldn't get samphire today, and I couldn't get sea purslane, but I've got tatsoi, I've got baby spinach, I've got potatoes because I couldn't get artichokes. I've actually got some of this, which is really nice, which is a flowering cauliflower. I think it's been sort of cross-bred with something else, but it looks lovely and tender and kind of sweet. So whatever the veg you've got, we just need to think about how we're going to put that into the stock as we complete our dish, so it doesn't overcook by the time we get to the end. So the first job, which I understand no one's got any artichokes at all, have they?
Yeah.
No. Okay, cool. So whatever you do have, pop that into get your saucepan on the heat. I'll try and turn mine on. Oh, no. There we go. I'm going to bring this to the boil pretty quickly, but you want to add your stock. I've got a vegetable stock here. You can use light chicken stock, fish stock if you like, or even water. Just the stock's going to give us a little bit more flavour. So I'm going to use potatoes. I'm going to pop them in. Whatever you have, just make sure that we're going to cut them down a little bit so they're not too big. So they should take about 20 minutes to cook. So mine are going to be about sort of that sort of size. Okay, I'm just going to simply pop them in. We'll bring this to the boil. I must admit, I've never done a Zoom cooking class before, but this is quite cool. I hope everyone's got a really nice glass of wine on the go.
Yep.
Good. So then you just want to take 1 or 2 slices of ginger.
I got
Ginger.
Yeah. You can leave
Sorry,
it.
I'm lost. What do I do with the potato?
I would just cut that down into cut it into 8 pieces maybe.
Perfect.
Something like that. So when you're gently cooking it, it's going to take about 20 minutes. So that sort of size. Okay. And 2 little slices of ginger you're going to pop into the pan as well.
What was that, Ashley?
2 small slices of ginger into the pan as well.
Okay.
Trying to keep an eye on multiple screens here, which is there we go. You seem to have an assistant, a commis chef on the go.
I do.
Yeah, mine's standing off at the side.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Oh, you've got one as well.
I'm sitting here with a white wine, she's on the other one.
Exactly right. So we want to bring these to the boil and then start simmering them.
Right.
The principles of this dish are, depending on the vegetables you've got, we're going to sort of trim them down, cut them to the right size. So I'm just going to chuck my flowering cauliflower in like that at the end. I'm going to cut some tatsoi now, so I'm ready. I'm looking for the smaller leaves really, but I'm also going to use the stalks. So we take a nice sized leaf. Okay, you can just cut across. So you've got a fork and a leaf, and it just means it's going to be a little bit easier to cook a little bit later on. So I'm going to get those ready there. You can hear lots of chopping going on. So when you come up to the boil, we just want this at a good simmer. Potato in there. Everyone's got their pan on. That's good. Mine needs to simmer a bit more. Okay.
Yep. So,
Now, what would be the next thing? We're going to get ready. So we're ready to cook the fish, the cod, if you've got cod. If you've got something else, it doesn't matter. So we just need to cut that into 2 nice portions. I've got my loins still here like this. We're going to take the skin off, okay? What I might do is, get rid of that. If you can see this, I'm going to cut my cod across into 2, whatever size portion you want, really. We're going to do 2.
I'll put them through then. Put them elsewhere.
And then to remove the skin, I've got the skin on the bottom. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the skin onto the board. I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to go in just above the skin and carefully, putting gentle pressure on the top of the fish, I'm going to cut the skin off. Okay. That's the easiest way of doing it once you've portioned it. So we can get rid of the skin.
And connect to Jabra 510.
This is my nice piece of fish ready to go in the pan. So, on the gentle pressure, keep your fingers out of the way. Keep your there we go. Gentle pressure, knife goes in, nice and flat, just above the skin, and gently go through, removing the skin. Okay? And when you're working with fish, just try and be really, really gentle with it. It's quite delicate. You know, it's definitely something that can't be manhandled like a piece of meat. So nice and gentle with that. And we're just going to keep that to one side so we're ready when we start to cook the fish later on.
Right.
So turn my board over. Yeah.
Okay.
We want to wash our hands and wash the board, or turn the board over, wash the knife so it's nice and clean for our next part. How's everyone getting on?
Good, yeah.
Right, fine.
Brilliant. Great teamwork going on there in that kitchen. Okay, so just check your pan is simmering away nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Did everyone manage to get clams or mussels or any kind of shellfish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mussels, yeah.
Okay, so our next job, how's everyone's vegetables looking? Have you prepared them down to a certain size? Everyone's happy? They're ready for that?
Yeah.
I think with this recipe is you can do all of this beforehand, and it's just a case of adding things to the pot as you go. And, you know, from there, it's just about cooking the fish, and then it all comes together at the same time. What we do need to add into our pot is our coconut water as well, in with your stock and your potatoes or artichokes.
How much was that again, please, Ashley?
100 mils,
100 mils.
100 mils, 100 grams.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, and our next job is going to be, we're going to make a nice little dressing. We're going to dress the broth with, and a bit on the fish and the vegetables that are sticking out from the broth. So you need to find your parsley, your lime, and we're going to use a little bit of coriander in there as well, if you've got a little bit spare. So we parsley, lime, and coriander. So, what we'll do first, we're going to pick all the leaves off the parsley. If you haven't done that already, I haven't. So not too much stalk, a little bit's fine, but so pick all the leaves off into a pile onto your chopping board. You guys with the extra chefs in the kitchen are probably going to be finished before I am, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll keep going, picking all that parsley. It's about a handful, something like that, you know, when you put it in your hand, the leaves. The great thing is, this isn't really precise, it's just very rough and free. It's whatever you've got, really. If you don't have parsley and you've just got coriander, that's fine. So, how are we looking on that parsley? Get in there.
Yeah.
We're going to need a small bowl and a grater of some sort, or a microplane for the next part. That's a bit of a not amazing so far. And then what we're going to do is carefully just chop this parsley. Doesn't have to be too neat. Do it however you feel comfortable, really.
That's fine.
You can run your knife over a couple of times. Scoop that into your little pot. Or your bowl, or okay. Just roughly chopped. Nothing too precise or fine. We don't want to bruise it too much either. So a couple of nice, concise cuts through the parsley. This nice sort of that sort of texture. And now we take some coriander, just a small kind of sprig, probably a quarter of the amount of parsley, and we'll just very carefully just slice through that, chop that. A little bit of stalk is good as well, because the texture of the stalk is lovely, and it gives really good burst of flavour when you crunch into that. I'm going to pop that in with the parsley.
Or salt. Need salt in it too.
No salt in there. If we add salt at this point into that dressing, what it will do is it will just turn it really black and brown. We want this nice and fresh. Okay. Now the next thing to do, could you all just hold up your pieces of cod on the plate or whatever you've got it on, or tray, just so I can see how big. Yeah, a little bit down a bit. Yeah, okay, a good size. Okay, so we'll get that on in about 3 or 4 minutes. We'll start another job. Oh, actually, we'll finish this one. So take your lime and your grater or your blade. We want the zest of this whole lime. Okay, we don't want the white bit. We just want the green bit. So be really sort of careful with how much you're taking off this. Just rub it over. We're just taking that green bit off, getting that really fragrant lime flavour, and this is going to go into our parsley and coriander. Okay. So be really careful not to take too much of that white stuff. That's really bitter. We want the really fragrant oils that are in the the green part of the skin. I've got mine, and I'm just going to put that into the parsley and coriander. Okay. And then I'm going to take a little teaspoon, and we need some olive oil, a little bit of olive oil. And I'm just going to pour enough olive oil into here, probably about 3-4 tablespoons. It's just going to start to bring it sort of together. It absorbs a little bit, and we want it to be like a nice dressing, but not really loose. Give that a stir around. Make sure all the lime zest is nicely distributed. You can see. As you can see, it's kind of just rough and it's oily. Smells amazing. And that we're going to dress our final dish with. So we're just going to set that to one side. How are we doing?
Yeah, done.
Okay, brilliant. Now, the selection of vegetables you've got to go in your broth, what have we got? I saw some sort of pak choy there.
Yeah.
Had some samphire there.
Pak choy.
I've got bok choy and samphire.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to have to really sort of go sort of by size and how long things take to cook. So, for example, if my piece of vegetable like this is quite thick and I've got one that's quite thin, I need to make them the same sort of size for each vegetable, okay? So if you've got stuff of different sizes, just trim it down now so that it's all going to cook evenly. When we decide, we're going to put it into the pot as the potatoes get closer to being cooked. Trim them down a little bit. Trim the ends off of those. So ready. You could do this with broccoli or anything really, cabbage. Doesn't matter.
But we're going to fry off the fish. The fish is looking in there.
No, fish flies it, but
How are you getting on? Okay, so pretty much now we've got our vegetables are ready to go in, whatever they are. They're all nice size, they're ready cut. It's just a case of popping them in at the right time as they get closer to cooking, as the potatoes get closer to cooking. So our next job will be the chili paste. Now, has everyone got a pestle and mortar ready?
Yeah.
They have that ready. So what we want to do is depends on the size of your garlic. If it's large, 2. If it's small or medium, 3 cloves of garlic. Peel those. Give your pan a little kind of shake and a stir, and just test whatever potato or root vegetable you're cooking is. See how it's doing. Mine's not that far away actually, so I'm going to turn mine down a bit. Let me know how yours is going.
Yeah, it's not bad. Well.
Yeah, not bad. Celebrate.
Okay, perfect. So turn it down just a little bit. So I'm going to go 3. Now this part, again, is quite a rough measurement really. And depending on how spicy you like your food, depends on how much chili paste you want to make. So, peel the garlic. Straight into the pestle and mortar.
I see. Sorry. I've gone wrong. The right way. Oh, very professional.
Very good.
Lots of bashing going on. So they've gone straight in whole. And then this is a bit where we need to be really careful. Is you all should have some dried chilies. I'm going to use about 5 in mine, and they're about the size of. Can you see that sort of size?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you made it a bit bigger.
Yeah, big.
But depending on, you know, don't worry about the size of the chilies. I mean, if we get this, if it's really, really hot, you'll just add less in at the end. It's something we're going to add gradually to taste, to your taste. And over time, you'll know which chilies work best for you, really. The trick is to buy enough that it lasts quite a long time, so that every time you make this, you know how hot your chilies are and how much you need to put in to make the food as spicy as you want. Just need to wash your hands really well after that.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What's time for
So
question?
you want the chili and garlic in there yet?
The seeds of the chili or no seeds?
Yeah, get it all in there, it's fine. So the next job is going to start cooking the cod, okay? So everyone's cod is a good size. So we want a good, don't get it ridiculously hot, your pan, but a good heat. So maybe 7 out of 10, let's say, on your hob. So we're just going to start warming that up. I've got my cod here ready. And looking at the size of everyone's cod, apart from yours, Charlie's looks like it's not as thick as the rest, but that's fine. Look like you know what you're doing. If you just have a tray ready that goes in your oven to transfer the cod to when it's nice and coloured, and then it will finish off in the oven. Obviously, the bigger the piece, the longer it's going to take.
Tree for the cord.
Mine is a good size, but it's not massive, but it's nice and thick. So by the time I get colour on that and turn it over, it won't take very long in the oven, just for the heat to come through and just cook. I don't really want to cook this too much.
Ashley,
Yeah,
did you have any oil in the pan before you put the fish in?
yeah, but get your pan hot first. So
Yep.
when your pan is hot, we're going to, oh, where's my salt? There it is. We're going to season our fish with a bit of sea salt. And as you put it on, just gently press it down. And then a bit on the other side, gently press it down. Now, I'm not going to add any pepper at this stage, because a lot of the time when you put pepper into a really, really hot pan, you're just going to burn the pepper. So we'll put that on at the end. It's really aromatic, it's really, really fresh. And you're going to get the best out of the pepper that way. Okay, so I've got my pan nice and hot. I'm going to put a thin layer of olive oil into the pan. Not too much. Got to make sure you've got a spatula on hand as well. And then I'm going to pick the best side. So I'm going to look at my fish, and I like to put the first side down, which is the presentation side, the one that had the skin on it. I think that looks really great. So I'm just going to put that into the pan, just to make sure it's nice contact in there. And we should start to hear a little bit of a sizzle from the pan. A little bit. We've got to do a few things at once here. So our potatoes are probably about 5 minutes away. We've made our dressing. Our vegetables are cut and ready. They're going to go in at certain stages. In our pasta mortar, we've got the garlic and we've got the dried chilies. And now we're going to add some salt. So you want probably about, I'll see if I can show you. So I've got that 3 cloves of garlic, 5 chilies, 1 good pinch, 2 good pinches. So it's quite a lot of salt. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. In teaspoons, probably 3 teaspoons of sea salt. I'm just going to now start the crushing the garlic and the chilies all together in there. And what you'll find, something's going to grind the garlic and the chilies together. This is a bit of work, so it can get a bit noisy, it's fine. Keep an eye on your fish. There. You don't need to turn it. You're going to let it brown before we turn it, okay? So it's going to be a little bit longer before I start to move mine. Really want to work this chili paste. With smash. The Tommy's, I think this one.
That's nice.
Right, I'm going to check my fish. Keep an eye on your fish. It will take a little while to colour. Yeah. A little bit longer on mine. See how yours is going. What nice golden colour on there. If it's not colouring too fast at the moment, turn it up a little bit. If it's really going brown, then it's time to turn it. But meanwhile, whilst you're keeping an eye on that, keep working your chili paste until literally the chili is all broken up, the garlic is all broken up, and the salt becomes really, really wet.
What?
You can-
Okay.
How are we going there? Everyone okay?
Yeah.
You don't need to take it.
Having some of this chili paste left over, you can keep it in the fridge, but I'd just be careful about putting it into a plastic container. I'd probably put it into an egg cup or something ceramic or a small dish or something that isn't going to absorb all that garlic flavour, because as you can probably smell, like mine, it's quite pungent and it's got a very raw flavour to it. But that's part of the beauty when it goes into the broth. So mine is finished. I'm going to turn my cod now.
Yeah.
Carefully turn it over. Add a little bit more oil. Come on. How's the cod looking?
Oh, right.
Yeah, a bit more.
A bit more. Okay, so once it's coloured, then we're going to pop it in the oven to finish off for 3 or 4 minutes until it's cooked. My potatoes, I'm just going to add a touch of water tonight. If your pot is reducing down quite a lot and your vegetables are sticking out, just add a little bit of water, because it won't affect the flavour. You've already reduced it, so we're just bringing it back to where it was before. So hopefully your chili paste will look like this. Almost like, let me come around there. Okay. How's your cod doing? Okay.
The oven.
Okay, cool. I'm going to put mine in now. Give that a little white.
You just put the head down. Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to take roughly about 4 to 5 minutes. So my potatoes are just about cooked. They're not far away now. Check them with a little pointy end of a knife. Make sure. How's everyone looking? Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to add our vegetables and our shellfish. So whether you've got clams or mussels, they're going to take 3 or 4 minutes. If you've got mussels, maybe 2 for clams. What's everyone got? I can see some.
Mussels.
Okay, perfect. So let's get them in the pan now, and then start to put your vegetables in at the same time if you've got mussels. I'm going to put my clams in slightly later because I don't want them to overcook, but I'm going to put my vegetables in now. And just make sure that you keep an eye on the heat of your broth. So as you're adding cold things in, it's going to cool the liquid down. So just increase the heat a little bit, and that will help keep things on track. I put my cauliflower and cauliflower stems in there. They're going to take about 3 minutes. I've got clams, I've got my cut soy, and I've got baby spinach that will go into the end. And our last thing in here is our chili paste.
Right.
So just make sure it's simmering now. Don't let it come off the simmer. I know everyone's really concentrating hard, but did I see some questions earlier that you had?
Yeah, there was a few. One of them was when you did the wine tasting in Australia. How was the hangover the next day?
Yeah, it was not good. It was pretty bad. We were moving the fat duck to Australia for 6 months, and I was sort of fortunate to go along with a sommelier to a wine tasting. And we had about 50 different sparkling wines and champagnes and about 100 other wines from around Australia to taste. And
Wow.
I wasn't so confident at spitting out the tasting of the wine, so I just decided that I was going to soldier on through and
Done that.
do my very best to not get too hammered. But yeah, it was very interesting. But the wines are incredible in Australia, absolutely incredible. I'm going to pop my clams in. So if you've got clams, now's the time to go in. Put as many or as little as you want in, really. That's the beauty of this dish. Nothing really has to be weighed. Make it whatever you want it to be, It might help if you've got a lid to pop a lid on. I'm going to put my tatsoi stalks in. The lid. What were the other questions?
So you said there about the fat duck, and it's somewhere my husband and I have been. It's the only place that I've ever eaten something that actually made me cry of thinking about memories of my gran, and it was the baby powder spoon on dessert. Is there any one particular meal that you've had at home or in any restaurants that one smell brings you right back to that?
It's a question we get asked quite a lot, as a chef, and it's very hard to sort of a restaurant or a dish. I've got my favourites from the fat duck, which are dishes, but I often answer in the way that when I went to Australia the very first time in 2005, we were cooking a charity dinner with Neil Perry from Australia, Thomas Keller and Guillaume from the Opera House for these kids. And after the big fundraising dinner, we all went, what's it called? It's going to come to me. Oh, what's his name? That's really embarrassing, isn't it? Anyway, the other chef that was there, I will think of his name in a minute. He's an amazing guy. He basically took us to his office and they cooked the most incredible Japanese food for 2.5 hours. We were all sat around the counter, and I had Heston on one side, and I had Thomas Keller on the other, and I just thought it was the most incredible dining experience I've ever had, and one that was completely unique. So for me, that's probably one of the most memorable times that I've ever sort of sat down and had a dining experience. But on the flip side, I've eaten in a lot of restaurants all over the world, and there's so many incredible ones that it's very hard to pick out an absolute, standout one. Right, I've got a little bit of baby spinach. I'm not going to put too much in. I'm just going to wilt that very gently now. How's everyone's dish looking there? Keeping an eye on your cod?
Very good, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do
My cod is ready.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to do,
Ooh.
just stir my broth round. Make sure all the leaves are starting to wilt down. The clams have opened, your mussels should have opened. Take out any that don't open. And then we're going to add our white soy or light soy. I've measured mine, so all mine goes in. And I'm just going to stir that very, very gently. And what this is going to do, this is going to be our seasoning for the stock. Oh, it smells amazing. I'm just going to have a little taste. Have a little taste of yours, but make sure the soy will give you your seasoning into the dish. So if you think it needs a little bit more seasoning, just give it a little dash more. Oh, that's amazing. So I'm going to stop mine from cooking now. Turn mine off. So as everyone, all the mussels are open, clams are open, potatoes are cooked, the vegetables are nicely, they've still got a little bit of texture to them, but they're not crunchy, but they're not really, really soft.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put my bowl there. Now we've got our chili paste. Okay, and I'm going to start off. This comes with a sort of warning. I'm going to go a sort of medium heat teaspoon in first. Pop it into the stock. Just get it so it breaks up a little bit into the liquid. Then just give it a gentle stir around, or a swirl, being very careful. The pan. Well, the smell is incredible. That's it. And then fourth part, another spoon to taste the broth. And what you're doing now is tasting for the spice level that you want in your dish. Whoa. I'd say mine's probably 5 out of 10 there for heat now. I want to go to a good 7.5, I think. Let's get that in there. Rake it up again. So if you're nervous about it, just go a little bit at a time, because obviously once you pass that point of it being really, really spicy, you're going to struggle to make it less spicy. But you can always add more. Give that a good stir around.
Yeah, mine's spicy. Yeah.
Tasting good? Wow, that's lovely. You know, any chili paste that you have left, put it in something ceramic in the fridge. That'll be fine for a good couple of days. You can use it for lots of different stuff.
Glass jar okay?
Sorry?
Is a glass jar okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Reusing and
Right, green one.
Yeah, that's a really fun.
Okay, so didn't pick on my fish, so I'm just going to put a bit of fresh ground pepper onto my fish now. Already seasoned it. And we need some sort of ladle. A spoon.
Fresh pepper. Where's mine?
Okay. Literally scoop out some of the potatoes, the vegetables, pop them into the bowl. Don't worry about too much of the broth at this stage. We'll put it in a second. Your clams and your mussels, vegetables in. Something slightly smaller if it's too difficult. There we go. And then going to pick out. Make sure you get all the mussels and clams out here. Don't leave any behind. Portions. Actually, do you know what? We'll do both now, whilst you're portioning this out, try and find those 2 bits of ginger and pull those out because someone might get a little bit of a shock.
One.
So separate that into the 2 bowls. That's out. And ladle in the broth, as you want. Now, very, very gently take your fish, put that into the bowl, wherever you wish. All going well? Someone's disappeared.
Yep.
Fiona, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm on a wee sneaky nibble.
Okay, and remember the little dressing that we had? The olive oil, the parsley and the coriander. Just kind of almost drab it in over the fish if you like. On top of the broth. However you want, really, you can smooth it over the fish. Definitely on the potatoes. And you're going to need a knife, a fork, and obviously a spoon for this, probably. It's a fairly messy dish to eat, but use your hands. How are we doing?
Did I miss the fresh red chilies going in, Ashley?
Oh, yes, you did. No, you didn't. I did. You can take the chilli as well. It's really nice. We're using dried chilies, but just take your chilli. I've got really small ones. They're really tiny. But I'm literally going to add a few slices. So I'm going to do really thin, fine slices across. And these are just going to give us a little bit of interest as we're eating. A nice burst of fresh chili flavour. Just literally 6 or 7 little pieces of chili in there as well. Mind your hands.
Do you want to go for it?
Yeah.
I'm just going to rip a few extra little leaves of coriander just to kind of pop in. Like all these different little pockets of flavour and little bursts of flavour. It makes it really interesting as you're eating through the dish to have different mouthfuls with different impact and little bursts as you go through. Great one. That kind of thing.
Wow.
Mm.
And how are they looking?
Yeah.
Really good.
Wow.
Very nice.
That looks great. How spicy have you made it?
Mine's quite spicy, yeah, very spicy.
Brilliant. That looks
Mine's okay.
well. But look, you know, the great thing with this recipe is this chili paste and stock, you can make it into whatever you want, really. So that is the real key. And when you eat through this dish, it's so simple, but it can be whatever you want it to be to incorporate different things. And it was just such a clever, really interesting thing that I thought came from nothing and can be turned into so many delicious, simple dishes. So I hope you have something nice to drink with it tonight. And thanks again for your support. That's amazing.
Thank you. That was
Yeah.
great.
This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Dinner party.
Cheers. All the best.